I didn't wake up to a parade of peace or a banner that said, "You did it." No big moment, just me, standing barefoot in a house that smelled like new lumber and unfinished dreams. The place wasn't complete. Drywall still bare in one room, cabinet doors waiting on hinges. But it was mine, every inch of it. A small craftsman style tucked in the woods outside Asheville, where the air didn't feel heavy with someone else's history. I walked through it slowly, one hand dragging along the trim I'd stained myself. No hallways. That was on purpose. I didn't want corners people could hide in. Every space had a window. Every wall would hold light. I stepped onto the porch and brushed a fingertip across the new brass nameplate by the door. It read, "This home belongs to the woman who built everyone else's first." It didn't make me cry. Didn't make me laugh either. It just fit. Inside, I hung the plaque from months ago, the one I'd nearly thrown away, not in shame, but in recognition. It went on the wall near the dining area, my handwriting etched into it, not Braden's, not anyone else's. I thought to myself, it's not revenge, it's return to myself. A week later, a padded envelope arrived in the mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside, the letter I wrote when I was 10, the one I mailed to Mom, the one that came back, unopened, years ago. This time, it was folded gently, a small sticky note attached. "You were always thoughtful. I should have seen it sooner." No signature, she didn't need one. I didn't cry then either. I placed the letter into a box labeled Keepsakes, tucked it beside a photo of me and Tamsin laughing over burnt lasagna. Sometimes the apology isn't late, I thought. It's just too small for the cost. Later that evening, I read the letter again. I had forgotten how hopeful I was, a kid scribbling dreams about building a castle for her mom with towers and a swing set. "Maybe I did build it," I said out loud. "They just never came to live in it." Fall came in slow this year. I hosted my first dinner in the new place mid-October. Just 6 of us. Tamsin, Ryson, Aunt Moira, and 2 neighbors I liked enough to feed. The table was mismatched but clean. I cooked every dish myself, nothing fancy, but made with care. No one asked about what I'd walked away from. They asked how I'd chosen the pendant lighting, what color I'd paint the trim next spring. One of them complimented the plates. "I bought them with the first check I didn't send home," I said. They laughed. I did too, and it didn't ache. After dessert, Ryson raised his glass and said, "To the kind of builder who doesn't just make homes, but makes room for herself." I looked at the people around me. No blood ties, no titles, just presence. I smiled. Later that night, I stood out back with a blanket over my shoulders. The air was crisp, stars slipping into view above the treetops. I checked my phone. Missed call from Lenora. I stared at it for a long second, then hit dismiss. Forgiveness isn't the same as reunion, I told myself. Sometimes it's letting go without dragging it behind you. I walked inside, took the original Law Home sketch out of a file, framed it, and hung it near the front window. The frame said, "First draft of me." The woman in the sketch had changed, same lines, same strength, but finally standing in her own blueprint. I didn't get the ending I wanted, but I found the chapter I needed to write next. I was standing in my apartment kitchen in Asheville, hands curled around a chipped ceramic mug, when the thought hit me, not like lightning, more like a quiet knock I'd been ignoring. Maybe it was time I did something real for them. Not a birthday card, not a Christmas gift sent late. Something that would last. A house. A real home. Mortgage-free. Somewhere they could grow old with a garden and warm floors, without worrying about property taxes and repairs. I'd been doing all right. My freelance work had been steady, my bills were covered, and I hadn't touched my emergency fund in years. There was room now, and that's what made it feel right, like I could give back something meaningful. I called my mom that night. She picked up after the second ring, her voice warm but tired. We talked about nothing for a while, weather, the neighbor's new dog, some sale at the pharmacy, and then I dropped it. "I've been thinking," I said, "about maybe getting y'all a house." She paused. Then came the chuckle, The kind people from the South use when they don't want to offend you. That's too much, sweetie. You should save for your own life. We're fine where we are. She meant it, and she didn't. That's the thing about Southern politeness, I told Tamsin later. It says no like it's doing you a favor. But the seed was planted, and I didn't need permission to let it grow. That same week, I opened a separate savings account. Every time a client paid an invoice, a cut went in. Every little sacrifice built toward a future I wasn't sure they'd accept. But I was going to offer anyway. No more weekends away. No more new coats. Homemade meals in place of takeout, and watching old movies instead of brunch. Quiet, slow choices that added up. When I visited Greenville for Dad's birthday, Braden had just fixed their backyard lights. Dad praised him like he'd installed a whole power grid. I sat there, chewing through under-seasoned meatloaf, trying not to take it personally. When I casually mentioned the house idea again, Dad brushed it off. "We're fine," he said. "Besides, you're always working. We probably wouldn't even see you." I smiled, nodded. And that night in the guest room, I started sketching the foundation. I thought if I built it beautifully enough, they'd see I belonged. There was a sunroom in the design, glass on 3 sides so Mom could sit and read with natural light. Dad's bedroom was on the ground floor, no stairs to bother his knees. I planned a garden out back, raised beds so he wouldn't have to stoop. I bought the land just outside of Greenville under a shell LLC. No one needed to know. No attention, just action. Only Tamsin knew. She asked once, "What if they still say no?" I smiled. "Then I'll give the house to someone who needs it. But I need to do this first." At night, I worked late, music low, coffee going cold beside me. I imagined them sitting on the porch, Dad sipping sweet tea, Mom fussing with a cushion that didn't sit right. Flashbacks slipped in. 9-year-old me drawing castles on napkins, telling Dad I'd build him one. He'd laughed, told me to finish my homework, but I remembered it. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a roof over someone else's head. Months passed. The concrete was poured. Framework stood like a skeleton of a future that didn't know I was coming for it. I picked everything myself. Paint colors Mom used to gravitate toward, hardwood floors Dad liked to brag he could maintain better than carpet. I asked them vague questions over the phone. "What shade of green do y'all prefer again? Do you still hate those faucet knobs that turn funny?" Their answers were casual, non-committal. "We're not picky. Whatever works." Braden called once during framing, said he was thinking of getting into real estate. "You're too fancy to visit these days, huh?" he joked. I laughed, didn't answer. It was easier that way. "They'll see the love in the details," I whispered to myself, running fingers along the banister I'd requested be hand-carved. One late afternoon, the final coat of paint dried. The light hit the porch just right. The wind stirred the grass I'd overseeded along the fence line. I stood in the doorway with the plaque I'd had custom-made. "The Law Home, built with love, 2022. It felt like laying a cornerstone on the version of me I wanted them to know. I mounted it beside the door, stood back, and looked at the house one last time. Just wait until you see it. I got there before anyone else. That was always the plan. Set the scene, light the candles, straighten the pillows on the couch, make sure the plaque was still mounted right where I left it, left side of the doorway, eye level, brushed bronze. The Law Home, built with love, 2022. I checked it twice. The place looked like a home, not a project, not a construction site, like a real home. The porch swing I'd picked out swayed gently in the breeze, the one with armrests wide enough for coffee cups. The floors smelled faintly of varnish, the air still holding on to the last traces of fresh paint and new furniture. I'd brought my small camera, clipped to the corner of the entryway, nothing fancy, just something to catch their faces when they walked in. I didn't tell them. I wanted their jaws to drop. "I've been dreaming this scene for 5 years, I whispered. They'd only have to live it for one moment. Tamsin's text buzzed through. "Let me know how it goes." "I hope they cry, in a good way." "Me too," I replied, then put the phone face down. They arrived 15 minutes later. Dad's truck, Braden's SUV behind it. I heard their voices before I saw them. Mom walked in first, arms crossed, her eyes sweeping the room like she didn't know where to land. It's beautiful, kiddo. Really. Dad gave a short nod, the kind he gives when he's impressed but doesn't want to show too much. You did all this? Yeah, I said. It's done. Every detail. Braden was already halfway across the kitchen, opening cabinets, checking appliance brands like a real estate agent giving a showing. This layout's solid, he said. Smart flow. I laughed once. Quiet. Then I heard Dad say to him, "You've got the eye for space, huh?" He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a slim envelope, and handed it to Braden like they were trading business cards. We talked about it, Dad said. This is probably easier for everyone. Braden took it without hesitation. Inside were the keys. I blinked. Wait, I thought you... Mom jumped in, smiling the way people do when they're trying to smooth over a mess without acknowledging it exists. Sweetheart, you live 2 hours away. Your brother's here. This way we can settle in quicker. My throat tightened, but I nodded. Of course. Whatever's easier. Dad patted my shoulder like I'd just handed over a casserole dish. It's still your design. That'll never change. Inside, the rooms filled up with relatives. Braden giving the tour like a host, pointing out features I picked, corners I argued for, windows I special ordered. His wife followed, baby on hip, laughing at his jokes. Mom handed me her phone. Can you take a group photo? I did. That was the last time anyone looked directly at me that afternoon. Later, I found the printed photo framed by the front door. They'd printed it the same day. Everyone was in it, except me. I walked outside to get air and noticed the plaque was gone. The one I had made. In its place, a painted sign, chipped edges, the kind you find at flea markets. Welcome to Hawn House. That was the moment. That's when it stopped being confusion and started becoming truth. I gave them roots, I said to no one. They gave me a reminder. I wasn't one of them. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. Someone brought a bundt cake. I moved through them. A few cousins nodded at me, distracted. One whispered, "Didn't Sorrel build this?" Another replied, "I think she just helped." Outside, I found Tamsin near her car. I handed her a slice of cake I didn't want. "They love it," I said. "That's all that matters, right?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Driving home that night, the road stretched longer than usual. My hands gripped the wheel like it might disappear under me. The silence in the car felt thicker than the one in the house. I whispered, "I thought the key was mine. Turns out, I was just the locksmith." A few days after the handover, I was back in Asheville. I hadn't unpacked much since coming home. My bag was still by the front door, keys still in my coat pocket. It felt like I'd walked out of a house I never lived in. I sat on the couch with my laptop open, scrolling through Facebook while my coffee went cold beside me. That's when I saw it, a post from my mom. Captioned like a greeting card. Grateful beyond words. Thank you, Braden, for making this dream come true for us. Every photo was a punch. Braden smiling on the porch. Braden with Dad, shaking hands like they'd closed a deal. Braden pointing at the kitchen layout like he'd dreamed it up on a napkin. And front and center, in every shot, the Hawney House sign. Not a single picture of me. Not a tag. Not a mention. Comments rolled in like waves. Relatives, family friends, folks from church. "You're such a good son. Can't believe you did all this." This is what a real man does for his parents. I didn't comment. I didn't call. Instead, I closed the tab, walked to my closet, and pulled out an old storage box labeled family stuff. Inside were photos, yellowed report cards, a few birthday cards with scribbled signatures. I flipped through albums one by one. I started to notice something. I wasn't in many of them. Not because I wasn't there. I was always holding the camera, always behind it. There was a shot from my 10th birthday. Braden grinning with his new bike, a red ribbon still wrapped around the handlebars. I remembered that day. I got a puzzle from the clearance shelf. Mom said it builds the mind. I smiled for the camera like it didn't sting. I told myself those things didn't matter, that memories weren't proof of love. But now, sitting there in my living room, that old excuse didn't hold up anymore. Later that night, Tamsin came over with Chinese takeout. She didn't say much at first, just handed me a box of orange chicken and poured wine into mismatched glasses. I told her about the post. She asked, "Did they ever say why they didn't include you?" I shrugged. I guess they assumed I wouldn't mind. She didn't push, just sat beside me, chewing slowly, her silence louder than any comfort. Around midnight, after she left, I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed. Voicemail, from Mom. We hadn't talked since the event. I assumed maybe it was a peace offering. I played it on speaker, but it wasn't for me. She'd pocket-dialed me while talking to Aunt Moira. Her voice was clear, amused. "Well, she built it, but you know how Sorrel is. She's better with buildings than with people." Moira's voice was softer. Still, wouldn't hurt to give her credit. Mom laughed. "Oh, come on. She doesn't need it." That's what did it. I played it twice. Then again. They didn't forget me. They decided. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone across the room or tear up the photo album still spread on the floor. I just sat there. Still. My face. It didn't move. I forwarded the voicemail to Tamsin. No message, just the audio. Then I lay down in bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time. It looked lower than usual, like it was pressing down on me, reminding me to stay quiet, stay flat. I whispered to the dark. I gave them something I never got: credit, trust, and a foundation. I got up, walked to my desk, opened the blueprint file, the one still labeled Law Family House. I clicked Rename, typed Project 17, Archive. Hit Save. It felt like slicing a cord no one else could see. The wall next to my desk was blank. I stared at it, then said out loud, "If I built that for them, maybe I can build something for myself next." The envelope was thick, certified mail, county seal in the corner. I stood in my kitchen staring at it, unopened, for 20 minutes. I hadn't expected anything official, certainly not from Greenville, not anymore. When I finally slid the document out, I scanned the heading. Notification of transfer of property ownership. My name wasn't there. Braden's was. I flipped back through the pages, disbelief slowing every blink. The deed, the reassignment, the stamped approval. I was gone. Gone from the house. Gone from the legal history. Gone from the one thing I thought couldn't be taken. The builder contract still sat in a drawer, signed by me. The bank wires. The emails. All mine. But none of it mattered anymore. I called the registry office. The clerk confirmed it. Looks like the deed was reassigned through family agreement, marked as authorized by owner. Everything's legal. I didn't even ask who signed it. I didn't need to. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I printed the new deed, 3 copies, one for my records, one to keep, one I didn't know what to do with yet. I walked into my office and set the printout beside the framed blueprint on my desk, the original design. My name's still on it. "They forged a new beginning," I whispered, and edited me out of the story. The next morning, I packed a small bag, got in the car, and headed south. It was just past 11 when I pulled into the driveway. The house looked different. Not from changes, just from knowing now what I didn't know then. I got out and walked to the porch. The bronze plaque I'd ordered and mounted was gone. In its place was a chipped wooden sign. Hawney House, Est, 2022. Same location, same screws, different story. I stared at it for a few seconds, then walked up the steps. Braden pulled in at that moment, waving to the neighbors like he belonged here, which I guess he did now. He nodded at me like I was passing through. A guest. Lenora stepped out onto the porch, a tea towel in her hand, smile tight. She didn't say anything. "You didn't just take my name off the house," I said. "You took it out of the family story." She blinked, then smiled again like she hadn't heard me. "Do you want to come in? I just made coffee." Inside smelled like potpourri and cinnamon. Not like home, not like mine. I sat at the kitchen table, the one I picked out, the island I argued for, the layout I defended when the builder said it was unusual. now covered in cute signs. Bless this mess. Family is everything. Home is where the heart is. Braden's wife came in with a casserole. This kitchen's perfect, she said. He really nailed the design. Lenora nodded. Didn't correct her. I kept my voice steady. Why was the deed changed? Lenora exhaled, sat across from me. We didn't think you'd mind. I laughed, not out of humor, just because it sounded so absurd. Is that how you raise a daughter? Hoping she won't mind being deleted? No one answered. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator, the one I'd picked out, paid for, registered in my name. I didn't touch my coffee. I stood up slowly, said thank you, and walked out. No slammed doors, no tears, just distance. On the drive back to Asheville, I played a playlist I'd once made for their anniversary. The music felt off now, like a soundtrack from a movie that didn't age well. Back home, I stood in front of the blueprint I'd hung in my office for inspiration, pulled it down gently, folded it line by line until it fit inside a thick envelope, labeled it, Project Not Mine. I emailed my accountant a short, polite message. Please remove all tax records associated with the Greenville property. I no longer wish to be affiliated. Then I opened the app connected to the security cameras I'd installed during construction, tapped Delete Home. No warning. No, are you sure? Just a silent screen and a blank map. They edited the house, I said, closing my laptop, but I'm editing the story now. If you're ready for Chapter 5, please say, Hey Viet Chung Nun. I'll continue immediately using the established style and structure. It started with a subject line I almost deleted, Mortgage Notification, Han House. The sender was a bank I hadn't dealt with in years. I clicked it out of instinct, not urgency. The body of the email was short, sterile, just an attachment labeled Loan Activity Overview. I opened it and sat back in my chair like the wind had been knocked out of me. There it was, my name, still linked as historical ownership. A house I no longer claimed, legally or emotionally, yet now it was collateral for a loan I never requested under Braden's name. I called the bank. They confirmed it. The home was used as equity for a personal loan. Your name is no longer listed as an owner, but it's attached to the billed origin. That's why you were notified. I thanked the woman on the line, hung up, and stared at my monitor. They used what I built to leverage a future I wasn't even invited into. I opened the drawer where I kept every receipt, blueprint, wire confirmation. The folder was thick, labeled Han File. It used to be called Law Legacy. 2 days later, I drove down to Greenville again. I didn't call ahead. It was a sunny afternoon. People were gathered in the backyard. Another cookout. Paper plates, folding chairs, Braden at the grill like the king of his domain. I walked in through the side gate, didn't bother with the front porch. A few heads turned. Conversation slowed. Braden saw me and raised an eyebrow. Well, hey there. You stalking my cookouts now? I didn't smile. I reached into my tote, pulled out the printed mortgage document, and handed it to him. He glanced at it, confused at first, then shrugged. Oh, just some paperwork. You're not tied to it anymore. Thought you'd moved on. I just wanted to see how far you'd take the parts of me you didn't build. Mom walked over, drying her hands on a dish towel. We didn't want to bother you with financial messiness, sweetheart. Dad joined her, arms crossed. It was Braden's idea. Besides, you're not legally part of it anymore. What's the harm? No, I said. Just morally. But I see that doesn't carry much weight here. That did it. Dad's tone changed. You don't need to make a scene. There's no need to cause division in front of the family. Mom touched his arm. Let's not turn this into one of her episodes. Her episodes? I repeated. Braden chimed in. Of course. We just figured you were out of the picture. You've always been a little detached, Sarl. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. Detached? I said. I designed this place down to the last doorknob. I poured the foundation, picked the insulation, fought with contractors who didn't want to follow a woman's plans. I gave you something you couldn't buy, and now you've turned it into a loan you didn't earn. The air was still. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone set down a beer can a little too gently. Aunt Moira walked over and stood beside me. Didn't say a word, just stood there. I faced the group. For years, I let silence be the compromise. I thought if I didn't make noise, I'd still be part of the room. Clearly, I was wrong. Then I left. At the car, I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the folder. It was all there. Emails, bank statements, timeline notes, signed agreements, proof. Not for them, for me. That night, back in Asheville, I sat at my desk and typed up a formal request to remove any remaining tax history tied to the property. Then I submitted paperwork to legally renounce all public design credit. I didn't want my name attached to anything they could manipulate again. If they want to pretend I never existed in their version of the story, I wrote in my journal, I'll help them write it. But I'm taking my name back with me. The email came on a Wednesday morning, just after I finished my second cup of coffee. The subject line read, Nomination, Regional Design Excellence. It was from the Carolinas Design Association. I hadn't thought about that group in years. I opened it out of habit, not hope. But the first line hit hard. Congratulations to Braden Hahn, nominated for his design work on the Hahn residence. I didn't flinch, I scrolled. Attached were the nomination form, photos from the project, my project, and Braden's name, bolded under lead designer. Ryson Dell was CC'd. He was my old collaborator, worked with me during the early drafts. I didn't respond with outrage, I responded with files, blueprints, signed PDFs, screenshots of emails, time-stamped renders, a trail as clean as it was undeniable. I called Ryson. I didn't know they listed Braden, he said. He asked me for a copy. Said it was for the hallway. Guess he hung it in the application instead. He paused, then added, Want me to send over what I have? I'll back you up. Send everything, I told him. No commentary, just the facts. I forwarded it all to the association. In the subject line, I wrote, Correction requested, attribution error. No threats, no drama, just truth. 2 weeks later, I drove to Charlotte for the awards ceremony. A small venue, local pros, and some press scattered through the room. I wore black, sharp lines, no emotion. I saw Braden before he saw me. He was laughing with someone near the punch bowl. When his eyes found me, they narrowed just slightly. He made a move toward me, but I stepped aside and walked past. They began announcing the finalists. When they got to the Hawney residence, the speaker paused. There has been an update regarding the project's lead designer. The board has confirmed attribution now belongs to Sorrel Law. Polite applause followed. I walked up, took the certificate, not with pride, not with vengeance, just to set the record straight. Later, in the hallway outside the banquet room, Braden caught up to me. You could have let it go, he said. I wasn't trying to steal anything. That's the thing about theft, I replied. It's never about what you say, it's about what you take. He didn't have a comeback, just stood there, one hand in his pocket, the other hanging like it didn't know what to do. I walked away before he could find his voice again. A few days passed, then the text started. Did you hear? Braden's firm took the project off their site. Someone posted about design credit theft on the association forum. It's getting traction. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I sent one email that week. To my parents. No words. Just a photo. It was a picture of the award. My name clearly printed. Black ink on white certificate stock. An hour later, my mom replied. We didn't think it would matter. I didn't write back. I saved her email in a folder on my desktop labeled, Proof I Stopped Asking. I started the day with a decision. There was no blow-up, no final straw, just a line I felt inside me, drawn so clearly I didn't even question it. I opened my laptop and typed the subject line without flinching. Termination of all ties, financial and emotional. The email was short. I sent it to all three of them. Dale, Lenora, Braden. No explanations, no justifications, just documentation. Name removal, tax detachment, a single closing sentence. I no longer wish to be part of any family decisions or responsibilities related to the Hahn house. That was it. I opened the folder on my desktop labeled Project Law, selected everything, and hit delete. As the files disappeared, I whispered to the screen. I wasn't written out. I walked out. 2 days later, I made the drive one last time. Greenville was already warming into summer, the air heavy with things left unsaid. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I parked on the street and walked through the side entrance, just like before. The house was quiet, only Lenora was home. I found her in the kitchen, arranging flowers in a tall glass vase like she hadn't already broken everything worth saving. She looked up. Her hands paused mid-stem. I didn't sit. I didn't greet her. I took the original plaque, the one that once read Law Home, built with love, 2022, and set it down gently beside the sugar jar. She stared at it, then at me. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You already did," I answered. She stepped forward, offered a smile that didn't meet her eyes, and wrapped her arms around me. It was a tight hug, almost believable. When she pulled away, I saw her wipe her palms on her dress. I nodded once. That was the last thing I needed to see. I turned and left. No plates slammed, no voices raised, no tears, just closure, dressed in quiet. On my way out, I paused in the living room. The photo from Braden's wedding hung over the mantel. Everyone in the family was there, lit perfectly, smiling at something I wasn't part of. I remembered the moment the shutter clicked. I was standing off to the side, not invited into frame. "You can't crop someone out of history," I whispered, "if they already chose to walk out." I walked out of that house without looking back. Not because I didn't care, because I finally did. Back in Asheville that evening, I pulled the last printed copy of the house plans from my filing drawer, folded it twice, dropped it in the recycling bin. Then I picked up the framed certificate from the award in Charlotte and hung it in the space where the blueprint used to live. Under it, I pinned a small brass plate. "For remembering who you are when they tried to forget you." The next morning, I called a realtor, not to buy anything, just to explore design lots. Something simple, something mine. I created a new project folder. Project Sorrel. Before closing the drawer, I reached into my keepsake box and pulled out the letter I wrote to Mom when I was 10, still sealed, still unopened. I didn't expect it to say much anymore, but I read it anyway. It talked about how one day I'd build her a big house with a garden and we'd have matching rocking chairs on the porch. I folded it carefully and placed it inside the new folder. Later that afternoon, I ordered a custom brass nameplate online. It would hang next to the door of whatever I built next. It would read, "This home belongs to the woman who built everyone else's first."